Hello and welcome to Different Perspectives. I'm Paul Ndiho in Washington. Today we turn our focus to the Horn of Africa, where a region once celebrated for peace and reconciliation now is on the edge of conflict. The Ethiopian government has accused its northern neighbor Eritrea of preparing for war. The accusation laid out in a letter from Ethiopia's foreign minister to the UN Secretary-General António Guterres alleges that Eritrea is mobilizing armed groups to attack Ethiopia. It's breaking news. We are going to definitely dig into it and see what could have led to this. I'm sure, as you can see in the background, those pictures, Ethiopia alleges that Eritrea is helping maybe fund, not only fund, but also train rebels who are opposed to Abiy's government in Ethiopia. Now, Asmara has, of course, denied those accusations, and we don't know what is going to happen, but it looks like the tension is boiling over, and this could result into some kind of war as we have seen in the past. So I'm going to try to maybe to weigh in on this. I'm not an expert on Ethiopian issues, but I understand what has been going on. I can maybe give a little bit of context here and there, just to bring us up to speed about what's been going on and how this could really be a turning point for that region. How did we get here? So far, no shots have been fired, at least not yet. But the rhetoric has hardened, the accusations have deepened, and the specter of war is once again haunting a region that is already endured decades of bloodshed. Let's take a moment to unpack what this means and what could happen if this were to be true and these countries go to war with each other. We don't know yet. This is all speculation because this is breaking. It just happened today. The Ethiopian government unleashing those charges against Eritrea. Now, for context, both countries, they have a troubled history. To understand what this means, we must revisit the root of this long and complex relationship. Ethiopia and Eritrea share more than a border. They share a painful past. For 30 years, Eritrean rebels have fought for independence from Ethiopia, finally achieving it in 1993 after a brutal struggle. When the guns fell silent, there was jubilation, but also uncertainty. The border between the two countries was never clearly demarcated. Then in 1998, tensions erupted over a small dusty town called Badme. The dispute escalated into a full border war that killed tens of thousands of people on both sides. That war officially ended in 2000. The Algiers Agreement put an end to it, but the peace that followed was not an easy one. A no peace meant war, a stalemate that lasted nearly 2 decades. Then came in 2018, a year of remarkable transformation, when a young reformist leader by the names of Abiy Ahmed, the current Prime Minister of Ethiopia, rose to power, preaching hope, unity, and reconciliation. Within months, he reached out to Eritrea's longtime ruler, President Isaias Afwerki, and the two men signed a historic peace agreement. The world hailed it as a miracle. Borders reopened. I remember people boarding flights, Ethiopian flights to Eritrea, to Asmara. They were met on the tarmac and people were rejoicing. It was great for two countries that had been fighting for years. to now finally have peace. Eritrea seemed poised to turn the page. For his effort, Abiy Ahmed was awarded the 2019 Nobel Peace Prize. Remember that? I mean, the whole world celebrated this guy winning a Nobel Peace Prize for reaching out to Eritrea, which I think that both men should have been considered for that Peace Prize. But for some reason, the Nobel Committee, in its wisdom, decided to give it to Abiy Ahmed, who had reached out to his counterpart, Isaias Afwerki, and gave Abiy Ahmed the Nobel Peace Prize, which was celebrated. The guy became more than just a leader of Ethiopia. As a peacemaker, people looked up to him as a peacemaker. He started giving speeches, traveling the world, and that didn't last long. Peace in the Horn can be fleeting. The Tigray War and alliance turns toxic just a year after the Nobel Peace ceremony. Ethiopia descended into chaos. I'm sure some of you guys remember what happened back in the day. I mean, it was bad. That Tigray War, it killed hundreds of thousands of people. I remember at the time I worked at the Voice of America, and I would speak to colleagues from Tigray and other Asmara, Oromia, and other regions. Those people could not see eye to eye, or they could not talk about some of these things because it was so close to home. Some of my friends here in Washington, D.C. are from both regions. Some are from Eritrea, some are from Ethiopia, and even more importantly, some are from Tigray. I have a couple of friends are from Tigray who also experienced those uncertain times. But what happened there, to this day, we don't know, because the Ethiopian government really put a media blackout, so there was not much coming out of that region. So we don't know how many people were killed, other than the estimates that we've gotten from international human rights groups that were in the area or that were able to observe what was going on in that region. That war obviously did not bode well for a country that prides itself as a country trying to, to be on the cutting edge of peace building. And I'm talking about Ethiopia here. So what does this mean going forward? It means a lot of things. One, it could be that Ethiopia, through its intelligence gathering, and they're very good at that, they have noticed that maybe Eritrea has been massing troops alongside the border, and so they wanted to preempt that. But of course, we don't know. Other than the letter that was sent to the UN Secretary-General António Guterres, we don't know much. But maybe the contents of that letter and other things will help us maybe figure out what's happening in that region. Now, let's go back a little bit. In 2020, war broke out between Ethiopia's federal government and the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, the dominant political force that had once ruled Ethiopia for nearly 3 decades. Ironically, Eritrea, once Ethiopia's enemy, became its ally in that war that I was just talking about. Eritrean troops across the border to fight alongside Abiy's federal forces against the TPLF. It was a strange twist of history, 2 former foes uniting against a common adversary. But the cost was horrific, like I alluded to earlier. The war in Tigray claimed an estimated 500,000 lives. Reports of atrocities, mass killings, sexual violence, starvation shocked the conscience of the world. Eritrean forces in particular were accused of some of the worst abuses. The guns finally went silent in the late 2022. I remember covering that. They had several peace mediations in Nairobi, in South Africa. And the leaders from both the Tigray TPLF and the Ethiopian federal government had decided to come to terms and agreed that there was going to be peace in that region. But it did not stop there. Eritrea was not part of that deal. I repeat this. Eritrea was not part of that deal. So, for whatever reason, that omission would later to be a critical fractured peace, and now the new accusations. Since the 2022 peace deal, tensions have simmered on multiple fronts. Inside Ethiopia, the Asmara region, once a key ally of the government, of the federal government of Ethiopia, this has erupted in a rebellion led by militia groups known as Fano. Now, I once spoke to one of a fan of Fano who was telling me that these are just vigilantes. They are not in any way trying to challenge Addis authority or take him out. These are people who are mobilizing themselves to protect their region, to protect their land. And they think that this Fano is not a militia, but rather a vigilante group of sorts that is there to help and protect their region. The Tigray region, still scarred by war, remains politically divided. I kid you not, if you met somebody from Tigray today and you ask them about the war, they will not want even to talk about it. They say what the Ethiopian government did to Tigray was nothing short of genocide, right? And of course, media, there was a media blackout, so I cannot speak to what extent that damage that was inflicted on the people of Tigray, I cannot speak to that. But I can only speak to what I know and what I've been able to read over the news and over the years covering the story. For Ethiopia's leaders accusing Eritrea of fanning those flames, in this letter to the UN, Foreign Minister Gedion wrote that Eritrea is actively preparing to wage war. Not alone, but in collusion with a hardline faction of the TPLF. He warned that this coordinated attack has become more evident over the past few months, alleging that Eritrea is funding, mobilizing, and directing armed groups in Ethiopia's Amhara and Tigray regions. Eritrea, of course, has not responded publicly. I don't even know if this is something they take seriously or if they will respond at all. But to this specific letter, we haven't seen anything. I've been monitoring their social media page to see what they post there. Nothing. As you know, Eritrea bans like all social media. Eritrea is one of the most controlled states on the African continent. So, in fact, some people have referred to it as the mini version of North Korea. But that aside, the signs are ominous. For its part, Asmara has previously called such allegations fabricated. Of course, everybody knows that. You know, these guys have been in this game for a very long time, so they know how to, quote unquote, do their messaging. So when it comes to messaging, you are not going to play with Afawaki's boys. They know how to craft a message and push it through, even though social media sites are banned there, but they have their own channels of pushing out these kinds of things whenever it desires them. Now, what we need to understand is that by the time the Ethiopian government came up with this statement, I'm sure they had done some research, they had intelligence to suggest that something similar to what is going on is happening. So this is not something that is coming off the cuff, you know. It's something that they have thought about. something that I think has been in the works. So they are telling us exactly what could happen. What could happen, especially now that they have taken it even to the international stage to make sure that whatever is happening is heard by the whole world, by the whole world. And I kid you not, this is not just something that just happened. It's been going on for a long, long time. When Eritrea gained independence in 1993, Ethiopia lost its coastline. Since then, it has relied heavily on its neighboring Djibouti for access to the Red Sea and the lifeline of its economy. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has made no secrets of his ambition to change that. In recent months, he has publicly declared that Ethiopia has the right to access the sea, calling it a matter of national survival. Those statements alarmed Eritrea, which controls the ports of Asaba and Massawa. Abiy's words have been interpreted in Asmara as a veiled threat, a signal that Ethiopia may seek to reclaim its coastal territory by force or if negotiations fail. In response, Eritrea has reportedly mobilized military along the shared border. As you can see in this picture behind me, I pulled it off their social media page. So those are some of the pictures that were posted. They say that the Eritrean government is arming armed groups to destabilize Ethiopia. If you read the captions, if you can read Amharic, you can pick a few words from it. In response, Eritrea has reportedly mobilized the military along the shared border and in the volatile geopolitics of the Red Sea, where global powers all have a stake. The slightest spark could ignite a regional fire. Eritrea has quietly strengthened its ties with Egypt, a country that has also tense relations with Ethiopia. This time over the ground Ethiopian Renaissance Dam on the Blue Nile. Now, with the Red Sea tension rising, a closer Eritrea-Egypt relationship could put Ethiopia in even a more precarious position, effectively surrounded by rivals on multiple fronts. Meanwhile, within Ethiopia, the government forces mounting internal pressures, including economic slowdown, ethnic tension, and political divisions. Then, I kid you not, it looks like I've lived in the Washington, D.C. For a very long time. I see people all the time, but something very interesting happens. As much as there are a lot of people from Ethiopia who are around here, you can barely put those guys in one room to have a conversation. Those guys are always fighting each other. So now these tensions, if they are fighting each other right here in the nation's capital, then what happens? What happens when they are back home? I think it's even worse because I've met a lot of Ethiopians, I've met a lot of Eritreans. They can not be in one setting. And then if you take it to a country level, the Maharas don't like the Oromias don't like the Tigray. So it's a country built on, it has a lot of internal conflict. Either it's because they're so inward looking, they all focus on tribe than country. So a lot of them do that. And to be honest with you, I don't know how even the international community can help. I don't see that happening anytime soon. But again, it's one of those things that has been ignored by the international community. The international media really doesn't talk much about this stuff. So it's one of those things that I guess as we move forward, we just have to figure out how to work around it and maybe figure out how even to have these conversations with people who matter. You know, going back to the point I made earlier, it's one of those things where it's one of those things where you have a lot at stake. For example, the human cost. The fear on the ground is that if war breaks down, there's going to be it's going to be very, very catastrophic. It's so many people are going to die. A lot of people are going to flee. That region is already experiencing that. So some people are saying it's going to be deja vu again. In the Tigray capital, Malkel, I spoke to a resident there who told me that this thing they're talking about, the war, could happen anytime. People are scared. They're like, wow, it's only been slightly over 2 years since the previous war stopped. Now they are worried that another war could break up again. People are still rebuilding, but who knows? This could actually spread faster than we think. So what should the people do? How can the international community intervene to stop this? Where is President Trump when we need him? President Trump has been able to broker so many peace deals. Maybe this is another thing that he needs to help to see if he can solve this problem. People are stocking up on supplies, and there are reports of sold out flights as they try to flee. For communities that only recently began to rebuild, the fear of renewed violence is almost unbearable. So what's at stake? This is a fragile, if this fragile peace collapses, the consequences could be devastating, not just for Ethiopia and Eritrea, but for the entire Horn of Africa. The region is already grappling with overlapping crises, civil wars in Sudan, instability in Somalia, and the deepening humanitarian needs. A new war could destabilize an area that is so critical for global shipping routes. It would also shatter any remaining trust between the two governments that could undo the fragile progress achieved since 2018 peace deal. For Abiy Ahmed, this is a defining moment. He entered office as a visionary, as a reformer, and won a Nobel Peace Prize, for God's sake. But today, he faces a legacy increasingly defined by internal unrest and the specter of renewed war. I kid you not, every Ethiopian that I've talked to, for some reason, doesn't like Abiy Ahmed. When they compare him to their previous leaders, they all tell you that they don't know what this guy is up to. But on the outside, he has put on this face. He's a visionary leader. Like I said, he won a Nobel Peace Prize. People love him for at least for what he has done, tried to revive the economy, trying to bring the country out of its darker days. But his critics alike argue that he's been, at best, inept at doing what I just talked about. Now, from Asmara's point of view, the talk of accessing the Red Sea is not diplomacy. It's an existential threat. Eritrea, a nation that built its identity on defiance, is likely to meet any passive encroachment with fierce resistance. Right now, both sides are playing a dangerous game, testing each other as resolve while insisting they do not want war. For many in the Horn of Africa, the dream of peace is deeply personal. Families have lived through multiple wars and lost generations. If the lesson of history are to mean anything, this moment demands leadership that looks beyond pride and past grievances. The Red Sea does not, I repeat, the Red Sea does not have to become another battleground. It could instead become a bridge, a shared artery of trade and connection. But that will require courage, dialogue, and willingness to see each other not as enemies, but as neighbors with intertwined destinies. Well, I can go on and on and on, but I guess this is my thoughts for today. This is at least my humble analysis for today. For what it's worth, we want to know what you think about this renewed tension. Ethiopian government accusing its northern neighbor, Eritrea, of preparing for war. The indictment outlined in a letter from Ethiopia's Foreign Minister Gedion to the Secretary-General António Guterres alleges that Eritrea is mobilizing armed groups and collaborating with opposition factions to destabilize Ethiopia from within. Share your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. And of course, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to Paul Ndiho on Substack, X, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, YouTube, and Spotify. This is an unfolding story. We'll keep a closer eye on it, so we'll keep you posted as we learn more about this story. As I told you, we don't have the details yet, but we are looking forward to keeping you informed because I'm sure Eritrea is going to respond to these accusations. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching, and good night from Washington.